It's a question people like me have been asking since we first learned about the man who shot and killed Auburn police officer Ronald Tarantino early Sunday morning. How was Jorge Zambrano even out on the street? Over the course of 18 years, he served time in prison at least twice. He's appeared in court 27 times, most recently last week. Charges against him have included assault and battery, drug trafficking, carrying a gun with a silencer, and assaulting a police officer twice. The first time was in 2007 when court documents say he punched an officer in the face and went at two others with a knife. Then this past January, prosecutors say Zambrano was pulled over, grabbed an officer, tried to pull him into his car where there was a large pit bull. Then he was arrested in February for domestic violence, posted bail of just $500. There's more since, but you get the gist. And the question, why was he free to kill? Joining me are Natasha Tidwell, an attorney with Calora LLP. She's also a former Cambridge cop, former DOJ attorney, and former assistant U.S. attorney. Good to see you again, Natasha.
Thank you, Jim.
And Isaac Bornstein, former Superior Court judge, now a visiting professor at Suffolk Law School. Judge, it's good to see you again, too. Thanks so much for being here. You know, let me establish my bona fides. I'm surely not a judge basher, but based upon what I have read and seen so far, I know there's an investigation going on, it seems to me the system failed Officer Tarantino. Is that not your conclusion?
No, it's not my conclusion.
Why?
I don't know. I don't have enough details. And frankly, the law says we don't hold people in the United States on preventive detention, not with the kind of charges he had pending against him. That's the law.
Pulling a police officer into the car and attempting to feed him to a pit bull. In the end of, that's in January. At the end of March, he's released without a finding, continue without a finding.
Right.
The next month, he misses 4 appointments with the probation department. That's a man who should be free on the streets?
Well, that's a man who apparently, my recollection is, nobody requested that he be held. Judges have to rely, especially when they have dozens and dozens of cases every day, on the lawyers in front of them.
So the prosecutor failed then?
I don't know if anybody failed here. These are cases, sadly, that come in rapid succession. We don't know all the details. It may have been weak evidence against them. These are allegations, so we don't know. And therefore, I understand the desire to pin the blame on someone.
Or for there to be accountability as well.
The assailant is clearly the one.
There's no question.
Right. But beyond that person, it's not that easy to jump to that conclusion.
Natasha, you're a former cop. Was your fellow police officer, Tarantino, was he done wrong by this release, or are you with the judge on this?
Well, let me just back up just a moment again. You know, our hearts go out to the Tarantino family. I think there are several things that happened here that, you know, are worth unpacking, right? You have the assault on the police officer in January, the ABPO, assault and battery on a police officer and the resisting arrest. He got it continued without a finding for that. And, you know, by mine, I'm sure the judge can weigh in here if I'm wrong. In order for that result to happen, for him to get the mental health counseling, for there to be an agreement of that, I think there has to be some agreement amongst the police officer victim, the DA, and the defense attorney. And they came to a resolution in that particular instance. And I think, as the judge said—
Which doesn't mean it's right.
Which doesn't mean it's right, but you have people who, at every step here, are entrusted with a vast amount of discretion to handle human sort of things. And they're going to make mistakes, or they're going to make calls that ultimately, in retrospect, with the benefit of his entire record and knowing what he's all about, to sort of look back and say—
Well, theoretically, that's all in front of the judge, though, and the prosecutor, too. This is not some alien set of documents that appears after the fact.
Not necessarily. I think that there are many things that are in the public record now. When you have the police officers who were involved in the January assault and battery, when they talk about what happened, the police officers who were involved in the arrest after the DV incident, saying they drove him to the station and he was mouthing off and saying all these things. These aren't necessarily in front of a judge or in front of a prosecutor when he or she is making a bail recommendation. And as the judge says, bail isn't meant to be punitive. It's
Can we bring a third person into the conversation who's not here? The former police chief of Boston is quoted in the Boston Globe. Here's Ed Davis. Attacking police officers is a good indicator that you've got somebody who's got a real problem. There's some people who are not amenable to counseling. When you see a repeat record of violent activity, I forgot there was domestic violence allegedly against his girlfriend too, then you have to get really tough with a person like that and get them off the street. So Ed Davis is wrong here, Judge?
No, he's not wrong, but it's not the whole picture. This was not the one case that day. You have urban courts that deal with individuals dozens of times a day, and sadly, what happens is someone like this gentleman, who didn't shoot at anybody, had he shot at someone, even a judge on his or her own would have said, wait a minute, gentlemen, you may agree to no bail here, but he pulled a gun and shot at somebody, I want to know more. But in a case like this, he doesn't jump out at you. And an assault and battery on a police officer, I'm not minimizing it. Look what happened here. But you know how many cases of assault and battery on a police officer come into an urban court every day?
Will you attempt to bring the police officer into your car where you have a large pit bull happens frequently every day?
I can tell you what would have happened, Jim, if that officer involved in that case and the prosecutor had thought this case was so serious that we need the judge's attention, they would have waved red flags and said, and that's
Well,
what
then
a
I
judge
think
looks
maybe
for.
ultimately the focus should be that. You know, Natasha, you're both sort of in the same place here. And let's assume for argument's sake, you're right on the merits.
Yes.
What matters, I think, to both of you as much as it matters to me is the public doesn't think you're right. And if the public doesn't have confidence in prosecutors who are there to protect them and in judges who are there to dispense justice, what do we do about that? I'll give you one example. I mean, this case in some ways, and I know they're all different, Judge, you know, the second I read about this, I thought back to the Jared Remy case, the guy being released the night before for assaulting the woman that he ended up killing the next day. Let's hear from a judge. Let's hear, if it turns out you were as right as you believe yourself to be based on the facts, why can't we hear from somebody in the system to say, here are the merits, here's what was before the judge, as you said, here's what the prosecutor said to me. Why shouldn't we be able to do that? The judges, it seemed to me, hide behind, to me, what is this ambiguous restriction, alleged restriction, on their ability to speak. Let the public know why you made the decision you made.
One of my disappointments is that we don't take a case like this and deconstruct it.
Exactly.
And it needs to be. We need to look at, did something happen wrong here? What did we miss so that next time we don't miss it?
And so the people like you don't have to speculate about what the judge knew and didn't know, what the prosecutor didn't know. Are there any the other thing that makes me so nervous about cases like this, Natasha, there's no reason to believe, based upon what the judge talked about in terms of the amount of cases, the severity of the cases, there are other Jorge Zambranos. Is there any reason to think that there are not more of them that got released after a serious offense because of whatever the reasons were, and that were waiting for the next cop or the next non-cop to lose their life because the system set them free?
Well, this is, you know, part of the issue is if we give everyone all of this discretion to make these decisions at the point of entry when people like Jorge Zambrano come in, if we give them that, we have to trust them that they're going to make the right decisions, and we have to allow for the fact that sometimes things like this are going to happen.
Maybe we should pay the
If we
prosecutors
go
more
back,
than $40,000 too.
or we
which
can
might
go
be
back
good
to a
thing.
system where the judges don't have any discretion. It's like if you are arrested and you have a pending case, then you're automatically held, and there is no. But we've tried that where there's no discretion in sentencing, there's no discretion in release, and what happens is the pendulum swings the other way. There tends to be a disproportionate effect on certain segments of the population. So you have this system where you allow for discretion, and these are the things that happen.
You can
as a
get the
result of
final
that.
word, Judge.
I just want to say we don't spend enough time on each case or each individual. We treat them as files. And the more the court system is turned into a business, let's produce more of these products, the less we're going to know about each product. And I think if somebody had really taken the time, I think Ed Davis is right. If somebody had really taken the time, who is this gentleman? Why are we having multiple incidents of
That he
violence?
might not have been free.
You're right.
That's the point I was hoping to make. Thank you, Natasha. It's
Thank
good
you.
to see you, Judge.
Nice to
It's a
see you,
pleasure
Jim.
to see you as
Yep.
well. Thank you both.